There was once a circus which claimed to have one of every creature extant, and each beast had its own individual decorated cage, wherein it stayed confined through its belief in the magical powers of the personalized colors of the bars. The bars were invisible, but that didn't matter, for the name of the circus was Earth. One man told his mind, "I'll shut up if you will," to which it replied, "You gotta be kidding." Wait, let's be serious for just a moment here and realize that some things are just not funny. Okay, that's enough. The expanded consciousness cannot defend itself, for it has nothing to defend. A man went to a speech therapist who was also a dentist and said, "It hurts me when I speak." And the expert replied, "I think the answer to that one is pretty obvious." Next, today's proverb update. God must have had very little faith in man's original intellect. That's why he made it so sticky. One man hollered, "Help! I'm being held hostage." And his mind quickly responded to his aid and asked, "By whom?" And he said, "I wasn't talking to you." Query, why would he say that to proffered assistance? One man yelled, "Help! I'm being held hostage." And his liver asked, "Might I be of assistance?" And he replied, "Yeah, a lot more likely than by my mind." One day reality cried out, "Help! I'm being held hostage." And life responded, "Get real." So, one Monday, mused one man, "The simple sure are nosy bastards." Then further reflected, "Except not about the right things." Definition time. Originality. Consider that the originality of the more conscious is like nothing, like a blank. That kind of originality. A story. Once upon a time, a man went to see a mystic and asked him, "Will you explain time to me?" And the woolly one replied, "Do you think?" And the man said, "Yes." And the wired one said, "There you are." And the man squinched an eye and said, "That's it?" So the oblique one added, "Okay, do you think in words?" To which the man again replied, "Well, yes." Then again, the angular one replied, "Then there you are." And after biting a lip, the man asked, "Are you sure that's all there is to it?" So the slippery one said, "All right then, do all of your words go in a line?" And the man replied, "Well, of course they do." And the vaporous one gave a palms up as to say, "Well, there you are." But the man still persisted. That can't be the whole answer as to time. So the whatchamacallit bent down to pick up this real big stick, and the man quickly jumped back saying, "Oh, no, you don't. I've read plenty of stories of people like you finally hitting people like me in the head for asking questions like this." And the mystic beamed with expectation, asking the man, When did you read such stories?" And slapped me with a lotus-soaked chicken, but damn if the man didn't suddenly see the matter of time in a new light. But hey, what are stories for? A man wrote to Dr. Enigma. A man wrote to Dr. Enigma, "Dear Doctor, why did men invent metaphors and that kind of stuff to represent life when it's right there in front of them?" And the doctor wrote him back, "Yes, precisely. Exactiola. I am so delighted that you see it. Please write again." The operational stability of the ordinary mind is based on its being held together by thought patterns, which are held together by individual thoughts, which are held together by electricity and chemicals produced by the mind. Here, horsey, horsey. Here, wooden horsey. Quiz time. Who invented the game of trying to climb out of a sand pit? The same man who sells self-help courses, of course. Okay, then how do you ever get out of here? I got to play both parts. Right this way, right over here. Special price today on all courses. Was that the answer? No, deafness is. Do you really mean deafness? Okay, selective deafness. You mean deafness in certain ideas, to certain ideas. Okay, no, deafness to a certain source of ideas. Wait a minute. There is only one source of ideas. Right this way, step right over here to the edge for today's real special. There was once a man who wanted to join up with the mystery caravan, but soon was left behind as he continually tried to examine the bottoms of his feet as they marched. Sergeant, as much as I hate to do it to a crippled beast, I guess you better go ahead and shoot Socrates. The simple like to debate and discuss with one another. It's so reassuring like. Today's helpful hint. If you get real serious just before you die, you'll die even harder. A man sat and pondered, how could I use this right now regarding my wish to either overpower my mind or abandon the damn thing? And in response to his own question, at least, had the intelligence not to presently get too serious about it. A boy asked his dad, just what is too serious? And the taller one replied, which one would you prefer to catch in your teeth, a 38 or a 44? No. Slug. A woman asked her orthodontist, since both teeth and thoughts are in the head, for problems, should I be consulting a psychiatrist or a hairstylist? And the kid finally replied, so 38 and 44s are my only two choices. Moral, if you stay too serious while you're alive, you may never die correctly. Another definition. Choice. If the more conscious were given a choice, guess what? They wouldn't take it. Another fact you can depend on like concrete. Those who don't know anything are always willing to share. Papa, why does proverbial wisdom seem so solid and reassuring? Because it protects men from having to face what's really going on. In response to that last item, the allegory lobby contacted us, apparently to complain, but their letter was so vague and rambling that I can't be absolutely certain. Everyone who has a mind talks to themselves, and what it says doesn't matter. All that matters is whether you listen or not. The first man shouted, the noise is deafening. The second countered, nay, 'tis distracting. And the third yelled, it's maddening. And the fourth said, what? As he pondered the history of man's many approaches to the attempt to expand one's own understanding to some extraordinary degree, a man thought to himself, why be it so common for men who undertake this search to withdraw themselves from everyday life and go into a physical seclusion? Why is this, he wondered. Why is this? What are they trying to get away from? Those who do secrete themselves do not yet understand just what it is they seek escape from. Truth is, it's much worse than they think. The double truth is, it's much better and promising. Real dumb people want to be reporters, same as some want to be experts. A man cried out, the conditions of life are killing me. That man hasn't got a clue. The child of a mystic one day wondered, why does no one care about this sort of stuff but my family? This child's name was Anomalous Nervous System. And in his uncommonness, he reveled and flourished. Hold on. A poem. You can hold your breath, you can hold your nose, you can hold your fingers and grip your toes. You can hold lots of things that you want to control, but honey, lay off of that mind. Let Go, a poem. Well, I think we better skip that one. Question: what is the most powerful thing known to man? Answer: the obvious, which is why men can't normally face it. The round table discussion went like this. First voice. I'm going to have to do them all again. Time equates with seriousness, to which a second reacted, not so. Seriousness is what holds reality together. And a third participant began participating by saying, I do not agree. Time is what keeps man's mental perceptions in proper order. Then a fourth discusser joined in. What ho? Say no. I thought this debate started out on the subject of time, and suddenly everyone checked their watch, then jumped up and left. Later, a janitor cleaning up found a note on the floor under the table where they had sat, and it read, a mind which has the time to worry about seriousness is in deep, speaking mystically, trouble. When beasts of simple means are trapped, they can be pacified by being promised freedom through a change in their behavior. Those with more complex potential quickly see through this. Eschewing normal forms of instruction and entertainment, one man said, listening to others think and talk makes me ill. Now to move on to the real problem of me. If you're glib, agile, and creative to begin with, and take your mind to be your partner and confidant on the road to the secret, the danger is that you can clever yourself down near to fatal distraction. More definitions. Slogans. Wisdom, the simple live by. Wisdom. The slogans, the simple live by. Thoughts. What the mind tells the more conscious they should think about until the Buddha doctor comes. Bullshit and nonsense. What the mind of the more conscious accepts, same as other important stuff. Today's dirty joke. I just read them. Once life started screwing man, just to make it more interesting, it covered the condom of reality with the grit that is man's mind. And everyone with even a scintilla of intelligence does not find this funny at all, or else hilarious. The obvious contains elements of comfort, reassurance, and humor only to minds much more complex than when they were created. The stripped-down direct version. If you think about things, they'll eventually annoy you. Medical update. 'Tis probably best that the weak remain simple of mind. A man asked a mystic, just who are your friends and allies in the struggle for the prodigious understanding? And received this reply. Look at yourself anew from top to bottom, inside and out. Then watch the nature of your inquiry shift. Today's bomb for the unsteady. If you ever get off the bus, if you never get off the bus, you'll never really know just how stupid you are. Of course, if you do get off, that becomes just how stupid you've been. The difference between real mythical warriors and the imaginary sort is that the real ones know that there is no one to fight. Stopping his vehicle in, as close as was possible, the middle of the road, a man asked a cop, "How will I recognize the obvious when I see it?" And the officer replied, "You won't have anything to say about it." "Gee, thanks," and off he went. After many years of reading about, dreaming about, and yearning for great mystical adventures, magical mythical excursions, and legendary challenges and rewards, this one man, in the full bloom of his maturity and success in life, one day stood tall and declared to his mate, "Martha, I'm going to give it all up and go off on my own personal search for the secret of awakening." And she replied, "No, you're not. Now go sit back down. Supper's almost ready." And off he sat. A viewer turned to his hamster and said, "Waldo, you reckon that was another one of them stories that ain't really about what they seem to be about, but are actually about the kinds of things that go on inside a man's mind, and he just won't normally notice it?" And Waldo just grinned that certain grin that only small rodents can pull off. A man wrote to his county extension agent, "Dear sir, my son has been reading weird books about expanding his awareness and visiting, if not creating, whole new worlds inside his own nervous system. And now says he wants to leave the farm and actively pursue this kind of stuff. What do you say?" And the government official sent the reply, please have your son contact me immediately. I want to go with him." And a viewer again turned to his hamster and said, "Waldo, do you reckon that was?" And Waldo said, "Yep." A man sought the counsel of his neighborhood plumber. "If it be so that our ordinary minds are always in error in their seriousness, in that they do not know the proper things about which they should be serious about, then," and the wise one with the plunger interrupted, "What in the hell are you talking about?" And after the cheap laughter had subsided, that viewer once again turned to his hamster bud and said, "Waldo, I'm almost certain this time that was some kind of story actually intended to shock us out of our normal state of stupor and expectations." And Waldo aroused himself sufficient to respond, "Huh? What'd you say?" Which you might expect to be the end of this story. But the man drew upon now even deeper, surprising resources and glimpsed that even this story about him and his hamster's response was a further extension into the realm of mundane blasting. Yeah. Those to this world born are ultimately of two stripes. While all are initially set upon the fine painted horses, only a few pull mirrors from their pockets, then throw them far enough away from the carousel so as to both save themselves from choking thereon and to get a panoramic view of the merry-go-doodle itself. Today's Cohen update. What sound does a mind alone make when it explodes and expands? The answer to this one will be officially issued in the year 2065, give or take. The simple can never see nor admit the obvious, lest it free them from their simplicity. That's a day full of news, isn't it? Well, sure, if you make it up, it is. No need to get testy. Still more or less talking about what the mind does to man and how men never see it. If you stand on the porch, you'll never get off the porch, and if you believe that which goes through the mind, which I was somewhat facetiously referring to as the traffic going by, as long as you have any preference about the traffic, as long as you, by the way, which is too easy to say, as obscure as it may sound to people to start with, but to say, well, you shouldn't have preferences about traffic, it's just going to keep you there on the porch. That is really kind of a weak-hearted version. If you think about traffic, you're almost assured of a fine sitting or standing place there on your porch up until whatever age is appropriate for you as per the actuarial tables. You'll stand right there. there is the difficulty being to ever see that, that you can hear it all of your life. And I don't mean ordinary people, because ordinary minds would not even give it any attention, but those who, if you insisted to them that here is important information, or here is a way to get your screwdriver in the crack, you can hear it over and over and over and over. And you never see it until you see it. Because you just throw out to the mind, you say, here, catch, and it'll catch. Now, everybody's mind will do that. All you got to do is just be sane. In fact, that is proof of sanity. Assuming that whoever throws out the ball, or whatever it is they're tossing, is sane themselves. That is part of the middle of the parade of human, what do you call that? Movement. But somebody always gets upset to hear it called evolution or progress. If an ordinary mind, as a full-fledged, decent representative of life, throws out, tosses the mind a ball, it will catch it. That is the basis of ordinary intelligence and sanity. But if you get a little bit further and people begin to hear some ideas through reading or gossip, or that there is another way to use the mind, then they can believe, well, what I'm looking for is some secret, obscure source to toss me out an extraordinary ball. Because you stand around and you invite priests, rabbis, religion, politics, arts, your family, community wisdom, the world of academia, you invite them, toss it to me. So they toss it to you, and you catch it, and it's never right. So those who believe that they would be off on some magical quest, the would-be mystics, believe that what's lacking is for someone to toss them a ball that's unknown. Well, that sounds fine. But the sad fact is that as long as you will catch a ball, you're done for. And part of what will keep a man, an ordinary man, stable and sane as opposed to becoming a deranged mystic. That's for you people that don't like the idea of progress, I figure. As long as you're going to take umbrage, take serious umbrage. Begin to get frightened, which is another story. Does being accused of being insane frighten you? This is a rhetorical question. Please don't hold your hand or send in letters. But does being accused is pretty easy. Just someone begins to insinuate, they begin to talk about insanity, and they keep cutting their eyes, you think, in your direction. I have a whole crowd of people, you're having a discussion, they keep talking about insanity, and they keep looking at you. Does that disturb you all, though? If it does, by the way, the little test I had in mind later on in the program, you may skip. You have already been graded. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Nuts, insanity. If you don't get way off the subject, that is the one kind of entrance test that has never been used by any mystical school. Since everyone likes gossip and kind of stuff you would never get out of books, that only someone liked stuff you'd never hear anywhere else. Out of all the tests that have been given to see if people will give up all their wealth before they come into the school, if they will denounce their religion, denounce their, some test, or will they stand there out in the cold indefinitely until the head of the school comes out and goes, oh, all right. All these kind of tests. And you can drag them out to the point that your mind would say, geez, if I could do that, or what kind of dedication, what kind of hunger would it take to put up with that? I'll tell you the real one is you find a mystical school. This would be the real story. This would be the history of a serious one. And some way you find it, and they let you come in and meet the dean or the chancellor or the head. And you give them your story. Like, I got over here and I traveled and gave up all this, and here I am. I'm dying. I want to join up. The guy said, well, I've heard this before, and I've got to tell you, we've had many years of experience, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people come through here. And he looks at you real close. He says, this is out of the ordinary, what we're up to. And you go, yeah. And he says, what we have to be careful of, and he looks more and more, he begins to lean over, is we sure do get a lot of, I'm talking about serious, dedicated crackpots in here. I'm talking about nut cities show up here. Little nutty-buddy clusters with feet. If he can keep that on, and then begin to perhaps make notes, and you do something like you shuffle your feet, and he goes, oh, and he watches you shuffle your feet, or you pull your collar, look off, and he goes, you can hear him right, looks off. Swallows real hard. If you can stand there ad infinitum and put up with that, I say ad infinitum, could either that or 4 minutes. Well, truth is, almost everyone whoever starts this at all, sooner or later, at one time, thinks, my God, I'm driving myself crazy with this. Which is, life looks after people, especially the weak. News item tonight, Kurt, it was a medical update. It is probably best that the weak stay simple of mind. Just stay ordinary. Because life will look after you, and many people have been saved from spending the large chunks of the remainder of their life involved with activities such as this by simply deciding, once they can't seem to get anywhere, even if they believe that they have actually gotten on the train in Paris, they ride and they ride, they think that they've paid their ticket, and they think that they're trying to run down the aisle to even go faster. And they never seem to get there. And finally somebody else on the train, or they believe they hear somebody goes, that guy's acting crazy. And they think, oh God, I'm driving myself crazy for no reason. Well, just by God, screw all this, and they get off the train. They saved their sanity. Back to wherever we were. It's hell to have to take a train going 270,000 miles an hour and run it backwards. Of course, the thing is, I stay too dedicated because I don't have to back up to the exact same place. No one ever notices. It just seems fair. If you tell the mind, if you throw out an idea to the mind that seems to be extraordinary and it catches it, it believes that then perhaps, we're not going to try and describe in any way objectively, if it was possible, that the ball you threw out, the piece of knowledge, was in fact extraordinary. But let's say that you took it, being still somewhere between sane and insanely hungry for the secret. And somebody tosses you out another ball that seems to be, when you catch it, because you have never felt the weight of such a missile. It doesn't feel the same, it doesn't look the same, it doesn't smell, and you think, I'm getting somewhere. It's such a sad report to have to bring to you, that as long as you stand there and hold that thing. If you think about anything, it will eventually annoy you. But it's so unusual. I've never heard an idea like this before. Now we fast forward a few months, a few years. The man's still clutching it because he's never found anything that extraordinary. But he begins to think, this damn thing's becoming a pain. It's in my way, I can't let go. It's beginning, it's not as, the original shine and patina seems to have worn off. The glow of it, it's beginning to smell, it's weighing more. First thing you know. But then they think, well, at least, that thing could have driven me crazy. I was going to try and give you a wider way to look at how hard it is to ever get the peaking where it is. That part of the normal need, or it is the normal need for ordinary men to cling to persevere in holding to a kind of serious feel for their background, for people to hold on to whatever was their religion, their culture, their nationalistic background. And it is important for the common thread of continuity vis-a-vis man's mind, because we're not talking about just the physical genetics of man, the animal, but this kind of perseverance, this vigorous claiming that one should uphold their family, their racial, their nationalistic, cultural, any sort of tradition that they have put a name on. At the ordinary level, this is of extreme importance. Life sees to it that most ordinary, sane people, all ordinary, sane people, if directly pressed, will say that they strenuously uphold the need for whoever they are, Irish, Catholic, whatever the hell it is, to say that I'm not active, I'm not a fanatic about it, but if you put it to me directly, it is important, because there is, they don't know this, but there is a need for a mental continuity to hold life together, civilly. Well, that's going on, and there is no escape from that, and it is the father and mother of many areas wherein ordinary smartasses criticize life, man, make sardonic, sarcastic critiques of life. It's easy. You can shoot at it all day. You can close your eyes and just walk outside once you know how to be that clever. You can go outside and go, pow, and somebody will holler. I mean, if you got a crowd of 4, 5, 6 people on this planet nowadays, since we're not as parochial, physically speaking, a crowd of people staying over there, and you pull out a bullet, aim for whoever, a Greek, a Muslim, anybody can go, pow! Somebody will be hit. They'll holler, oh! You might take a couple of shots, but you're going to hit one of them. And they holler, oh, they're supposed to holler, oh. It isn't, but this is the basis. I'm not going into the examples because all of you have done it. Your mind continues to do it, that you continue to take shots at people. It's natural. It's no excuse, but it's natural. It is necessary. It's no excuse, but it's natural and necessary. That you uphold some form of, or that you are in some way chauvinistic in the widest sense of that word, that in some way you feel protective of, defensive of some group of people, some background. While this is going on, those who know a little bit more, those a bit more conscious, are in fact operating on the basis, attempting to not think about such things, to come up with the originality of a blank mind, not an unconsciousness of it, not an ignorance of it, because you can't back that train up. You can't go from, well, I knew that, to, oh, I forgot that. No, I didn't really know that after all. I don't even have to say that attempting that will produce severe tire damage trying to back up like that, because you can't. But while that is necessary, that the collective, that is one of the forms of sanity, that is one of the forms, one of the examples of decency on all levels. And I just gave you a wide range. It doesn't matter whether it's religious, nationalistic, cultural, none of it matters. But ordinary people, somewhere you can step on their toe, if you want to look at it that way, some way that you can finally start insulting a man or making crude remarks about race, religion, race being weaker. But now that men got a name for it, it's more than it appeared to be. But culture, all forms of background, you keep going like that, and finally man will go, hey, come on. Come on. Because that is part of being normal, natural, and ordinary of mind. It is routine and it is necessary. While that is going on, people attempting to do this sort of thing are actually cutting themselves out of that chain, cutting themselves out of that collective web that is necessary for everyone else. The only reason I picked this out is an example from which men cannot escape, and they take it, whichever one or more than one, that they would find to be of serious importance to them. Let's say their nationality and their religion, whatever it is. They take that to be, as they should, but they take it to be of a higher level than other things I could mention. Would you give an example? Well, sure. They would find it offensive, probably, if I compared that sort of chauvinistic attitude, that kind of upholding of some honor and tradition, the need therefore, if I compared it to, well, let's see, joining Weight Watchers. That Jenny Craig is of the same importance as the founder of some nation somewhere, the founder of some man's religion. It's the same thing. Same thing. It is being held into place by the general collective web of the collective human consciousness, and as long as you are a part of it, you will be tugged by it. You will support part of it. It is, if you remember the drawing I did, surrounding the planet, running at the level of consciousness, it is like an unknown level of atmosphere that comes up somewhere between, 5 and 6 feet more or less would cover the earth, and it goes right through here. And if that is the level of your consciousness, then you're operating from the mind. You're operating from the mind with which you were born. It doesn't matter what you put into it. It doesn't matter what books you've read. You're still operating from the mind, and you're thinking about things. And if you think about things, some things seem more important than others. And if you try and point out to a person that Jenny Craig, does everybody know who that is? Or who's it? Richard Simmons? Mr. B, whoever established, who was the guy that started Alcoholics Anonymous? Any of those self-help programs. All of these are the same thing. I'm just trying to find something that seemed to be potentially further afield and potentially offensive to ordinary simple minds, to say that Jenny Craig is of same significance as Abraham or Muhammad or Jesus. Bruno, what's his name, established Italy. Which was hard to do from the trunk of a car, but that was Don't any of you Irish write me and congratulate me. Just a joke. As if picking out an example from history, that one here and there is a joke. That's funny, but as a news item tonight, clearly established, some things are humorous and not actually funny. I thought that's what it said, but maybe I'm wrong. As long as you operate by the mind, then you are a sitting duck, you are pre-sold, you are pre-qualified, as we say in the home improvement business. You have been pre-qualified without your name even being known. Suddenly, one of our fine, honest representatives knock on your door and tell you that we just happen to be in the neighborhood re-roofing this other man's house, and we had lots of shingles and materials left over, and your house struck our fancy in such an unusual manner that we decided, and here it comes, you're already pre-sold. If with no money down, just sign right here, and at an extremely cut price, we will redo your house. We will do your house. Maybe even throw in your driveway if you resist at all. You are pre-sold as long as you take the mind to be you, be on the body. And by now, all you got to do is be all you people and anybody that owns a TV set. You're all qualified now. You all fit the mold that you can no longer back up. You cannot do the very things that keeps people going to see slasher movies, or that makes people enjoy sports, that makes people enjoy reading about crime, that makes people drink, is the desire to regress. Which, by the way, if you want to get off the subject again, I knew you did, is another sure sign of how sane and intelligent you are. Is you can be sitting around and sharing a drink with a table full of ordinary, civilized people, college-educated, professional people, and just make the comment. I don't mean it's a criticism. Let's say you're sitting there joining with them, and you turn around to someone and you say, do you realize that drinking, or I heard that somebody said that drinking, all it was a desire to become uncivilized, to regress. And you can have quite ordinary, sane people sitting there with their martini or whatever, and they'll stop. They go, that's not true. I mean, that's not true. And they will give you examples. Well, you might even have somebody say, I hear that. But now you're talking about people like winos. You're talking about severe alcoholics, people that cannot even function in society. Do you know what? I'm a judge. I'm an accountant. You know me. I am not an alcoholic. The only reason I stop here every day, most days after work, I'll have maybe a glass of wine or one or two drinks, but it's like the pressure. I mean, it's an unwinding, it's a social, and they all go, yeah, and it is. If you're going to talk at a simple level, yeah, it is. And if you said, wait a minute, where does stress, as you call it, where does all this that causes you to do that, where does that come from? And they'll go, well, I thought I just told you it's like my job, the pressure of my job. And you go, yeah, come on. But the pressures of the job. If you were not civilized, would you have those kind of pressures? Then it begins, they hear the words. That sentence makes perfectly good sense. And they can't even disagree with it. They just begin to kind of drift off or look at you like, you seemed all right a few minutes ago. Who are you? It is a desire to regress, which you cannot do. But back to what we were talking about more or less. When you're attempting not to think about things and let them annoy you, it is not simply a matter of going back and being crude. It's in another direction, and it's not even a straightforward direction. It's not even, if you looked at the kind of progression, it's going that everyone relives to a kind of metaphorical. I was hoping you'd say metaphorical instead of literal. No. I knew you were, that's why I said it. Watch it. That everybody metaphorically goes through this history, from being a little nipper and nappies, diapers for you people here in England, into a young adult, an adolescent, and then grow up, that in a very brief, fleeting, metaphorical sense, you relive all this, but you still have the savage in you, there's no doubt about that, if you have any sense. And it's neither here nor there. If you got a liver, you got a savage. If you got a stomach, you got a feral beast, if you're sane. But when it gets any higher than that, the things that you think about are ultimately of no consequence. The things that you think about, if you even come to the conclusion that some are of less consequence than others, that I'm going to have to shake my desire to be greedy, I'm going to have to in some way get over my continuing desire for revenge on people, all of those kinds of yucky things that even religion takes a swipe at. If you think that there's selective things that a man must give up thinking about, then you're being held captive in an invisible cage. But if you remember the first time tonight about a circus that claimed to have one of every creature extant, and that each beast had its own cage, and each cage was personalized, was individually decorated. And each beast stayed safely, calmly, pacified. And no one understands this, but through its belief that the individualization of its cage was of particular significance. You want me to give you a stripped down version? Ordinary people do not mind being neurotic, psychotic, suffering, just as long as they can believe that it borders on a unique form. Almost as fast as, or as handily as you can get into a fisticuffs by beginning to insinuate to someone as they're insane. Almost as readily you can accomplish the same by simply asking somebody, get them going. It takes all of 2 or 3 seconds about, how you feeling? What's new? And so they begin to tell you their problems. Maybe about their having the shingles. We already covered that. The gout, the migraines. And you encourage them a little bit, and you go, yeah, I've got sore muscles, but, Jesus, sometimes I feel like that the kind of emotional the pressures are worse than anything. Just give them a hint. And they go, oh, and then they tell you. In other words, somebody tells you their sad life story. If you want the chance of getting involved with a knuckle tango even quicker than questioning their sanity is listen, give them a hearing, and then wheel out their sad, guiding light or young and restless, whatever it is, their sad soap opera of a life about all the things going on. And when they get through, go, yeah. Show that you understand, that you were listening. But then, treat it as though, that is so humdrum. Half the people I know are going through that. That is, people find that very offensive. We don't have to say people. You think about it. That if you tell this terrible tale, not just physically, but even that will upset people. If you tell some tale, this sounds cruder, and if I didn't realize how sharp you people were, I wouldn't do this, but this is the way people get out normally. Ordinary minds weasel out of it. If you said something, if they gave you a physical piece of bad news, that they're brokenhearted because their father just died. And let's say that they're middle-aged people at least. And you think, if you don't say, you think, well, hell, everybody I know, including me, their father's dead. And why are you begging for sympathy? Personal sympathy. Why are you making such a deal out of it? It's horrible, but show me somebody's father who hasn't died or who's not going to. Now, if you did that, which would be just absolutely useless and simple-minded, but if you did that, you understand, an ordinary mind can then get out. Because as long as you give the ordinary mind something that's down on the physical level, they can always find a way out. They can always reject it, get through it, ignore it. But if they present you with some problem that's they would call it of an emotional basis, about broken love affair, I guess that's about as good as any. And it's just this horrible thing. The man or woman, whoever it is, tells you about how faithful they were and all that they've done to hold together this relationship, or maybe it's about one of their family members, some child, about what a decent, hard-working, caring person they've been, blah, 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 blah. And now they tell how my wife stole everything from our bank account, ran off with my best friend. Just this horrible story. Did I make it horrible enough? I don't know what. Maybe I forget sometimes what's horrible in everyday life. But anyway, something horrible. Or if you want it stronger, they start telling you, I'm not talking about somebody who is neurally, genetically damaged enough. I'm talking about someone who claims that their only problems are emotional. Just as ordinary psychological party talk would have it of my childhood traumas and my non-incapacitating phobias and etc. And they begin to really weave these kind of tales that people do nowadays that my mind is almost driving me crazy, is the basis of it. And you listen to it, all their gory details about how horrible, and they stay up at nights, and they're considering having to start taking antipsychotic drugs, and they go, yeah, and they get through, and you go, that's it? You went, Jesus, half the people I know are worse shape than you. People do not like that, to say the least. I was going to leave it to you with no prize offered tonight as to why is that. If you think about anything, you can't let go of it. It will eventually annoy you. It will eventually turn on you. That's why people can believe that they found, I'm almost there. This is surely a ticket to awakening, to enlightenment. This will get me to Istanbul. But then to try to explain that, how are you going to throw that to someone and they not catch it and then still hear it? And you can't. Hence some of my descriptions of trying not to stare, trying never to think about anything more than once. That at least when you hear the ball thrown out, the idea thrown out about, here is what's been lacking, and you catch it and you go, uh-oh, I fell for it again. You didn't fall for it. To hear it, you had to catch it. But you don't have to stand there and hold it. Now, you can't drop it, but you can go. Unless, of course, you let it stick to your hand. And all you got to do for that to occur is what? Nothing. All you got to do is be sane and ordinary. All you got to do. The personal guarantee that all of the financial and otherwise resources of the great international corporation known as New Intelligence offers the ironclad guarantee that there is one way, guaranteed, for you to never experience anything extraordinary above, probably in most people's cases I'm going to say the navel, but to be more in line, above the level where you think now. The one way guaranteed that you will never experience anything extraordinary, the way I can guarantee, speaking in the name of the full mystical corporation, that you will never know any more than you do now. You'll never even come close to looking out and going, well, I'll be damned. You'll never know what's going on in life. You'll never know the secret. You'll never know what awakening, liberation of the mind, enlightenment. Guaranteed, the way to keep from that is to do whatever you're doing now with your mind. Then again, we'd have people, besides the insanity and dismissing their individual problems, then you'd have people go, wait, even if I accept that, even if that strikes me as having some serious validity, may I speak to you personally, or may I raise a question here? You said that was a blanket statement, but you don't know what I personally do with my mind. And Dr. Enigma, you remember what he said to that gentleman who wrote him? He said exactly. Well, he said precisely, exacto Rama, surprised, delighted that you got it, please write again. I assume that you surmise the same as me, that the man never wrote him again. What could be more blunt than the obvious? What could be harder to see than the obvious? Should we take additional time and think about it? If you would accept that there is, which I insist there is, some verbal and otherwise validity to me saying that anything you think about, or if you think about things, but if you want to sound more specific, anything you think about will eventually piss you off. If you take that to have any validity, where does that leave thinking? And the mind will still insist, no. I mean, it's either a trick or you don't know what you're saying. You're not even listening to what you say, because that cannot be. I know it. But does it ever strike anyone, I ask you rhetorically, no one in mind, about these people who have written books, if you didn't do it yourself, who spent their life seeking the secret, starving themselves, going through all sorts of hardships, finding what appeared to be sources, and they never find it. Of course, you're ordinary. I guess you just file it to a new level of, in your conspiracy theory notebook. Aha! They're hiding it even deeper. Yeah. But it never strikes anyone that that's curious at all. To begin with, when you were a child, let's say that you were a teenage would-be mystic, I know it was fascinating. For one thing, it gave you an excuse that you thought if I could to daydream that if I ever get rich, instead of just being an ordinary rich person, I'll be a rich person out seeking the great mystical secret. I'll be able to afford not to take a cargo boat to India or Ceylon. I'll have my own jet and fly over. I'll do it right. But once you get past that, what's your excuse after you get somewhat past your teen years? And through all your reading, everything else you do, you can't ever find the secret. Everybody keeps saying, it's over here, come over here, and you never find it. And I again assume that you're just at the ordinary level, well read enough to know that you are in mucho deep, widespread company throughout history. Why have all those people that write about it that you ever read about, or ask yourself, why does no one ever finally come to the place and think, this sure is curious? Am I such an egomaniac, to put it in street terms, to believe that this great mystical secret work and these great mystical secret people hiding somewhere have in some way singled me out to specifically hide it from me. I'm just sure that you just positive other people just seem that, oh yes, I met Yogi so-and-so, or you're reading a book, some guy says, if you had been here when Buddha was alive, or when Swami so-and-so. And so you're convinced that people have done it. And in your lifetime maybe. And you've got to think, they have singled me out. I am so important to the general scheme of things, either that or the gods and the fates hate me so bad, but same thing, that they have specifically, they just decide, they passed the word around, if he ever shows up, play like it's a bakery. Don't let him know. Tell him you're closed. Tell him it's between seasons. All of that notwithstanding, back to the original rhetorical but serious question, or potentially useful question, why does it not strike you and everyone else? After some period of time, let's be charitable, 20 or 30 years, that it never strikes somebody, this idea of it being hidden is getting a bit out of hand. Something is curious here. I mean, I'm intelligent, I'm well read. How can they keep hiding it? Why do they hide it? No, that's dirty, because I'll give you a way out again. It's too powerful. Yeah. Too dangerous. Yeah. I'll leave you then with our medical alert and update. 'Tis probably better that the weak remain simple, ordinary, just operationally dazed, not disoriented enough to keep you from finding your way to work and to the bank, but not upset enough to actually do anything out of the ordinary. I thought I left on a serious note.